Hello, welcome to Allegheny College. Today we're going to take you on a green tour of our campus and tell you a little bit about the efforts that we've made to reach climate neutrality. So Allegheny College reached climate neutrality this year. This past fall we received an award, and that made us the 8th institution throughout the United States to be climate neutral and the first in Pennsylvania, which is very exciting. So what do we mean by climate neutrality? Well, in 2007, we signed the American College and University President's Climate Commitment. And what this was a bunch of colleges and universities throughout the nation, although we were one of the first to sign that, that said, hey, we are going to explore, model, and educate about efficient and sustainable options. So we're going to think about buildings, we're going to think about the processes that happen on campus. We're going to think about all the materials we're using and how can we be as sustainable as possible. And so since we've made this formal commitment, we have completed annual greenhouse gas inventories. So we're thinking about the impacts of our campus from heating, electricity use, water use, air travel, waste production, paper and food consumption, as well as a variety of other factors. So literally every detail on this college campus has been considered for how sustainable it is and how we can make it better for our environment. Some other things we've done is we purchase energy credits, and so from wind energy, and so much of our energy and heating comes from those sources. We have a great compost system you're going to learn more about. We have a garden on site you're going to hear about, and we've paid attention to how a lot of our buildings operate and function. Some of them we've done some really cool modifications, and we'll show you those, but others like Carr Hall, where we're standing right now, we've actually completely renovated this building to make it what's called LEED certified. And so LEED, it's L-E-E-D, and we'll give you a link for that, stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And so this is a third-party verification that makes sure that we're doing everything we can to build and create a building that is as environmentally friendly as possible. So we're talking energy savings, water efficiency, CO2 emissions, indoor environmental quality. So making sure that the paint doesn't release off gas and smell a little funny. And just making sure that all of the resources that come into the building and that leave the building are managed properly. So this building is actually what's called LEED certified gold. And so LEED has a variety of different, it has a scoring system. And so you could be basic, silver, gold, and platinum. And those change and improve over time the more we learn about building materials and how to be more efficient. And so, Carr Hall. This place was once a library. It was built in the 1960s. It used to look like a bunker. And so in 2008, they wrapped up a renovation that took a couple of years. It's now this very energy efficient, very brightly lit building, right? So I'm standing here behind a living wall. This is a wall of living green plants that are completely watered by rainwater catchment from the roof. And we'll show you a few other cool features. So this is a beautiful mural that was made of all reclaimed materials. And the artist that was hired to do this really paid attention to where materials were coming from and what they represented. Up top here, if you can't see, take a look next time you're in Carr Hall. These are called solar tubes, and you're going to notice these throughout the entire building. What these are doing is there's a hole from the roof that comes through, and there's a bunch of mirrors that can be moved, and they maximize the amount of sunlight. So what you're going to see if you're hanging out in a room in Carr Hall is that when the clouds go by and when the sun is covered, you actually feel this connection to being outside. Right? And a lot of times when you walk into a room, you don't even have to turn the lights on because there's enough light in that room that's just being collected from the sun. Other features that you'll notice around Carr Hall, the lobby is completely covered in green plants. At one point in time, those plants were edible plants. However, we discovered that we created the perfect storm for pests. And so what we have done is try to find green plants that bring the outdoors in and that can stand up to any pest insects that may be coming and going. This whole space was designed by a junior seminar class. And so here I'm part of the Environmental Science and Sustainability Department, and our classes are really integral in determining what our spaces look like and in helping us design a really sustainable campus. And so that's going to come up multiple times on this tour, just the involvement of students in what they're seeing and what's happening here. One other feature that's worth showing you, we have a koi pond over here. This is a model of a hydroponic system, an aquaponic system, and so what's happening is that as the fish poop, it's pumped up into these plants and used to fertilize the plants. They filter out any impurities in the water, and then the water comes back into the koi pond. So this is a demonstration of a system, of a hydroponic system. Hello, we're out here at the campus garden, also known as the Cardon. It's right outside of Carr Hall. So when you walk by it on campus, I definitely encourage you to take a look. It's beautiful in here right now. We're growing all sorts of produce, herbs, milkweed for monarch butterflies. I've got some peppers behind me, eggplants over there, beautiful sunflowers. So really, this is a place with a lot of diverse plants. You're gonna find lots of insects living within these plants, and lots of diversity. So the Cardon supplies some food for your dining hall. So much of what we grow here goes straight over to Brooks Dining Hall, where they make a variety of different dishes with that. This is what we call a closed loop system, which don't worry, you're gonna be learning a lot more about that. But what we do here is we actually, when you're in Brooks or you're in McKinley's, on a typical year, when you're getting rid of your food, the food that you've decided not to consume, it goes into a compost bin. That compost, those food scraps then go up to an area up at Robertson, where we heat it up really hot so it kills any microorganisms that might hurt us. And then we let the bugs and the worms and all these organisms break down those food scraps to make really, really nutrient-rich soil. And so what happens is, we grow our food here, it goes to Brooks, you eat some tomato salad, decide not to finish it all, those food scraps go into the compost, they then go to Robertson where they're broken down, and that soil, that really nutrient-rich soil, comes back here and goes in these garden beds. What that means is we don't have to use a synthetic fertilizer, right? So all the nutrients are in the soil, the plants can take that up. And so this is called a closed loop, because we are not getting rid of anything along the way and we're not bringing anything into the system, right? So that's what the Cardon really, really demonstrates. Some other things you probably want to notice here in the garden, and if you walk by, you will see this bright pink glowing building. This is our renewable energy greenhouse. This was designed and built by students. The solar panel design, which is what the pink glowing is on the top, was actually designed by one of our professors here in the ESS department, and students worked really hard to figure out the best way to use it on this greenhouse. So why is it pink, is what you're wondering, right? Well, what happens here is that these pink solar panels actually allow sunlight to pass through to the plants, while also collecting some of that light and using it to generate energy in this greenhouse. And so it's running a fan that you can hear very loudly if you're on the other side of the greenhouse to keep this area cool. We have a pellet stove within so that in the winter we can still grow things in here and keep it nice and warm. And even the materials that this is made out of, everything was considered how sustainable can we make these materials, and can we create this greenhouse. So just to note, there's a few picnic tables here that are great to sit on, a good way to get outside on really nice days. Another thing you probably want to notice while you're just walking around campus is that we are very careful, the campus is very careful in what plants we plant on our campus. So much of what we plant is considered native. That means it's pre-European times. The reason that's really important is it means less maintenance for us, right? So the plants that are here are used to the really cold winters. They're used to getting quite a bit of rain in the summers and in the spring and fall. And so we're being very careful to plant those plants that can be self-sufficient and create a really diverse campus community. You also may occasionally notice tractors spreading some of that compost throughout campus. So the compost that I talked about that's used in the garden beds here in the garden is also spread throughout campus to ensure that the grounds remain green and that the grass stays, that bright green color. It's a form of fertilizer actually, but it's a natural form of fertilizer that came from the food that you decided not to eat.
So here we are in front of Steffi Hall of Life Sciences, which is found right next to Carr Hall. And as you can see behind me, we have an array of 24 solar panels that were installed in 2011. These solar panels produce about 2,000 kilowatts hours of electricity per year. So to put that into a little bit of perspective, a refrigerator uses about 650 kilowatt hours of electricity per year. These solar panels were installed using money that was saved during our annual October Energy Challenge. And so each October we ask the students and staff and faculty to be a little bit more conscientious of the energy that we're using, making sure we're turning off lights when we're leaving rooms, turning off our computers at night. And each year during that annual October Energy Challenge, we save about $10,000, which equates to about a decrease of energy use by about 10%. And so these solar panels cost about $8,500 to install. And so we were able to use that money that we saved during that October Energy Challenge to help to pay for the installation of these solar panels.
All right, here we are. We're across from Steffi Hall. Quigley Hall is over to my left. We're next to one of the playgrounds that's here on campus. And what you're seeing is a hillside covered in 400 native species of grasses and flowers. This mix was actually developed through Ernst Conservation Seed, which is a company here in Meadville that has a nationwide presence. And I'm sure as you spend more time on our campus and within our community, you'll hear more about that company. This really shows our dedication to native plantings and to increasing diversity on our campus. If you look in here, it's a great place to find some really cool pollinators and to see lots of diversity. Now on my left, you'll see some gravel here, and then just to the left of that, some bushes and trees and shrubs. This is what we actually call a rain garden, and you're gonna see these throughout Allegheny's campus. So, Allegheny's up on the top of the hill. At the bottom of the hill, which you will hopefully see in the near future, is French Creek. French Creek is actually an extremely diverse creek. It hasn't been, the biodiversity is amazing. It's 17th on the list of last great places in the US, so 17th out of 100. And so French Creek has not had a lot of, the land around it has not been managed in a way that has jeopardized the biodiversity of that creek. And so this is really a treasure to our community, and it's where a lot of researchers do research because there's organisms there that you can't find in a lot of other places. And so we want to protect French Creek at the bottom of this hill. Right above this rain garden, what you're going to see is, well, what you can probably see, maybe the hood of a car, is a parking lot. And that's a solid sheet of non-porous concrete. And so what happens when cars sit on that parking lot? Fluids leak out of them. You end up with lots of runoff from that solid sheet of concrete, and it goes down the hill. And we want to prevent that from getting into French Creek and jeopardizing that biodiverse ecosystem. So what we have installed throughout campus are rain gardens. Now these rain gardens have plants that are really good at filtering out those impurities that are running off and making sure that they stay put and that they're dealt with here and they don't actually cause damage in the creek. Many of these rain gardens throughout campus were designed by various courses in the ES department. And So those students did a lot of work looking into what plants are most suitable for these type of rain gardens, what plants could handle the amount of water that's flowing off of those concrete parking lots, roofs, anything where the water isn't absorbed, the water is going to run off. And so we're trying to prevent that from doing any damage to the surrounding environment.
Okay, so here we are in front of our admissions building. This is the site of 30 geothermal wells that were installed in 2006. And so this entire building is heated and cooled using this geothermal exchange system. Essentially what that is 30 wells that are drilled down, and they're connected to a series of underground pipes. These pipes are buried about 500 feet down below the surface of the earth. And the real advantage to having these pipes 500 feet below the surface is that it's a consistent temperature of about 55 degrees. And so in the summertime, like today, when it's about 85 degrees outside, the warm air from the admissions building is pushed down underground and cooled down to about 55 degrees. And then that cool air is circulated back into the admissions building. And so this is another example of this closed loop type of system. And in the winter, it has the opposite effect. In the winter, the cool air comes from the admissions building, gets pushed down underneath and warmed up, and then back into the admissions building. The construction of this geothermal well in 2006 helped to reduce our fossil fuel usage on campus by 80%. And so these geothermal wells had a really great impact. Such a large impact that they have installed 60 additional geothermal wells that helps to heat and cool North Village Phase 1 and Phase 2. And so this is another example of the ways that Allegheny has reduced their dependence on fossil fuels on campus to reach our goal of carbon neutrality in 2020.
We are here on top of the Vukovich. We'll go to the front here in a few minutes, but what you're looking at is a green roof. So this is the top of the Vukovich Center, if you have ever been in there. This roof, as you can see, has lots of beautiful plants, grasses, a great walkway. It's a wonderful place to walk when the weather's beautiful, or even when there's snow out. It's nice to come up here. So what's the value of a green roof? Well, it has a few different actual benefits to it. One of the big ones is we talked about this idea of non-porous surfaces, concrete roofs, and the fact that water runs off of them and then runs down into French Creek or into other bodies of water, right? That doesn't happen with a green roof. What you've done, and what we've done here, is we've created a porous environment. So when it rains, the water is actually absorbed by the green roof, right? These plants are using that water to grow. They're sucking up nutrients, and so this is actually preventing a lot of that runoff that we've talked about previously. So it's capturing rainwater, providing a habitat for various types of wildlife. Because of the fact that we're trying to absorb lots of water, some of the plants up here are not native. This is one of those examples, but it's still a diverse environment that we've created for a variety of organisms. The walkway, which you'll see behind me, is made out of certified materials. So the materials that were used to make that were sustainably sourced. The other benefit of a green roof is it does a very good job of controlling the temperature of the Vukovich. So unlike a big dark colored surface that absorbs lots of heat, this does not absorb that type of heat. So you will find that in big cities, like Copenhagen, they actually require new buildings to have green roofs because it prevents the city from heating up. And so in a very small way, we're doing our part to keep this building at a more controlled temperature. What does that mean? It means that we don't have to pay as much to heat and cool it. And it also means that we're not using as many fossil fuels to do that. So, green roof here on the Vukovich. Right across the street is NV1 and NV2. Now, we're not going to go over there. Go take a look at those buildings. Both of those buildings are LEED certified. They're both heated with geothermal. Kelly described that to you previously. And so we are reducing our carbon footprint quite significantly with these two buildings in the way that they were constructed. Other features to consider if you ever get a chance to go back in there, there's really thick walls within the building, double paned windows, it's airtight. That means when it's cold out here, which it is a lot in Meadville, that cold air isn't coming in and we're not heating a building because we have leaky windows, right? So this is a really good example of making a really efficient building that what little heating and cooling we have to put into that building is used very, very, very efficiently. So geothermal, great features on the inside. There's also, you'll notice the paints, anything that was used is non-toxic, so you're not getting off gases from that indoor environment, which is really important. They've paid attention to lighting, windows. How can we use fewer lights? The lights that are in there are LED, and so they're using less energy. These are some new constructions. Maybe what you've noticed is that in some cases the buildings on campus they're older buildings, they've been renovated. We showed you Carr Hall. You'll see Bentley here in a little bit. But these are brand new constructions and every detail of them the sustainability was considered. Even the roof is made of a rubber substance that lasts twice as long as a tile roof or as a shingled roof. And so what we're saying there is that's shingles that we're not having to dispose of or that are going to have to be created when we might have to replace that roof in 20 years. We can now wait maybe 40 years to replace that roof. And so 2 LEED certified buildings here. Behind them, there's a parking lot that you will learn all about as you become an upper class student. It's gravel, so the plowing in the winter is not always as effective as some would like it to be, but the reason it's gravel, it's actually called GeoWeb, so it has a series of webbing underneath that gravel, and it's the same concept as the green roof here at the Vukovic. Water is draining through that gravel. We've created a porous substance, and we're not sending water with pollutants into French Creek, so the runoff is not as great.
All right, so here we are at the Vukovic, or commonly known as the Vuk. This is one of the newer buildings on campus, and it was, again, it was built with LEED considerations in mind. So although it's not certified LEED Silver, it does have a lot of properties that would characterize it as a LEED certified building. The challenge with certifying LEED buildings is that it does cost money. It costs about $250,000 to get something LEED certified, and so there was a lot of debate whether or not to certify the building as LEED Silver or to use that money towards other sustainability efforts. Some of the characteristics that make this building LEED certified is that green roof that Professor Choate just talked about that helps to maintain the temperatures. The other characteristic of this building that helps to maintain temperatures, especially in the winter, are all of these really large south-facing windows. So these south-facing windows help to obtain a greenhouse effect in the winter, which means that a lot of that heat energy goes to the inside of the building and then it's captured there and used to heat up the building in the winter. The building is extremely airtight, again helping to maintain the temperature, decrease cost of electric and heating. And also this building is pretty much buried underground. And so we saw that we were on top of the green roof there with Beth. And you can see also that we are buried underground here. So we have the entrance and then we have lots of area that's built up around this building. Again, it's all about temperature control in that sense. And so this is our theater and arts building, the Vukovic. So now you know a little bit more about that.
The final stop on our tour is the historic and iconic Bentley Hall. If you've received any flyer from Allegheny College, looked on our website, you've seen this building. It looks a little different right now because it's currently under construction. This building has been around for 200 years. This is where some of the first classes held at Allegheny were located. And so, as you can imagine, a 200-year-old building needs a little work every now and then. So what's happening here is that the college is being really careful and considerate and taking into account the history of the building and what it should look like, as well as sustainability. So this building, this 200-year-old building, which is really, really impressive, is going to have geothermal heating and cooling, improved insulation, airtight windows, vacuum insulated glass, weather sealed windows, all of the things that make it extremely sustainable. We're thinking about even the paint that comes into the building, the light that comes into the building, and how much electricity we're going to have to use for lighting. Even the office furniture. I was talking to the sustainability director recently, and she was in charge of finding very sustainable office furniture where she could track all of the materials that went into to those pieces of furniture. So this is pretty impressive. I can tell you of no other 200-year-old building that is going to be so sustainable. And so what you'll see throughout our campus, and what I hope that you've seen, is that there's brand new construction like the Vukovic, like NV1 and 2, where we've tried to make those LEED certified and really think about everything coming and going from that building and all of the electricity and carbon being used or released into the atmosphere. And then we have old buildings like Carr Hall and Bentley Hall that we are completely renovating to be extremely sustainable. And so it's worth thinking about, does it make more sense to renovate old buildings in the way that we have done in some cases, or to build new, really high-tech buildings, right? So it's worth thinking about that. The other thing to consider is, should we keep renovating buildings, or should we start spending a little bit of our time thinking about our own behaviors? So simple things like making sure we're turning off the lights, using less paper, composting all of our food scraps, getting rid of some of the waste in our waste stream, so thinking about the plastic that we're using. So these are some things that you should consider as you start thinking about the sustainability of campus and how you want to make an impact on our campus. So thank you.